Good evening, Professor. My name is Christine Dattoli. I am a member of group number 4, presenting on the topic Youth, Homelessness, and the Juvenile Justice System. I'd like to start my presentation this evening by giving you the definition of homeless youth. According to the National Alliance to End Homeless, it defines homeless youth as unaccompanied individuals between the ages of 12 and 24 who are living independently without a parent or guardian. They do not have the means or the ability to acquire consistent, safe, and appropriate shelter to sleep. In my article, which was a study by Nairnoff and her colleagues, she indicated that 3.5 million young adults were experiencing homelessness in any given year, with approximately 1/3 reporting previous experience with foster care and half reporting involvement in juvenile detention, jail, or in prison. The goals of my presentation, or I should say is my objectives, is to explain the impact of homelessness on young adults and society, to understand the risk and preventive factors associated with youth homelessness, and why it's important to include youth in planning for the future. What measures can be taken to reduce youth homelessness, with a goal always in mind to provide prevention programs and intervention at various stages of these youth lives to prevent a negative outcome. I'd first like to discuss a little bit of the factors that do contribute to youth homelessness. We have known that economic circumstances due to poverty and housing insecurity is a big factor for youth being homeless. We understand that racial disparities of, especially when it comes to African American men, it is the largest grouping of youth homelessness. We do know that disabilities and mental health play a very big part in homelessness, whether it be due to substance abuse or families discarding their children. But the greatest contributing factor to youth homelessness is children and youth that are aging out of child service systems of foster care and also the juvenile justice system. We know that homeless youths that were in foster care or the juvenile justice system have a high probable risk of mental health issues, involvement in drugs, and a greater risk of participating in adult and criminal activity. Why are homeless youth predominantly from foster care and juvenile justice system? Well, it was determined that homelessness is disruptive to the maturation process for both children and adolescents and profoundly impacts their cognitive, social, and emotional development. We know that homelessness has this devastating lifelong effect on youth as they get older. Guidance and youth's involvement in their own plans for the future is essential in reducing involvement in high-risk behaviors that lead to building resilience and to a better developmental outcome. In Britton's article, Preventing Homelessness for System Involvement, she says that being homeless subjects youth to deeper entry into the juvenile and criminal justice systems because they're placed in situations of committing survival offenses like theft and engaging in sex for money or for food or for a place to sleep. If we took the time to understand that if we could keep our youth in school or provide them with job training, it would be effective in keeping better outcomes for these children. If we provided effective legal representation, it would also, again, provide them with better supports and giving them a safe place to be. The characteristics of our subgroups and the relationships to their outcomes. Different childhood experiences predict risk behaviors and outcomes of youth adults and young adults. This data from Naronoff's Homeless Youth and Resistance Survey determined that different types of system involvement predicted risk indicators in young adults, including substance use, trade, sex crimes, justice involvement, unintended pregnancies, suicide attempts, and psychological distress. When we looked at youth that had no system involvement, they had the highest rate of completing high school, and so did those that had foster care alone. But understanding the risk and resilient characteristics in youth in different systems can provide important information for those involved in child-serving systems who attempt to prevent homelessness, and for the homeless service providers who are seeking to effectively assess risk and intervene with homelessness youth that they serve. We did note in Naronoff's study that youth that were involved in the juvenile justice system alone, as well as in a dual status grouping, lacked the coping skills and exhibited problematic, high-risk behaviors and poor overall outcomes as they got older. Preventative interventions prior to system exit to coordinate efforts specifically to support youth could bring juvenile justice and child welfare systems together to work toward a common goal to better supporting youth and provide for better outcomes. However, it can't be done unless the youth actively seek to be part of the process. Those who are historically of the homelessness or experience with child welfare or juvenile justice system stand to benefit the most from meaningful roles within organizations and other decision-making bodies, actively participating in organizational or community-wide initiatives may not only offset some of the effects of their prior negative experiences, but also spurs system change and helps refine the services. I want to talk about the 3 strategies of the American Bar Association that were discussed in my article with Britton and Pilknick. And it was mainly many systems involved in youth and experiences in homelessness. They talk about the 3 strategies and the prevention with coordinated transitions and reentry planning. With the first American Bar Association model in mind, When youth require that transition and re-enter the plan and are included in participation by all the agencies and also reaching out to the youth, housing and education and employment training is important. The American Bar Association would help all documents necessary for the youth to transition to independence. It would help them obtain health care, continued services and benefits until they were secure on their feet, and identifying case managers to extend child welfare services when it's needed. The second strategy, which was the effective legal representation, this put plans in place to specifically address long-term housing and stability. With legal representation, they were given steps and counsel that would help them in their legal advocacy throughout court decisions that could help them resolve employment barriers and lead them to better existence. And the final prevention with a sound judicial leadership was to offer foster youth better representation with foster care placement, and also provide them with better court systems to develop protocols to screen referrals and keep youth out of juvenile justice systems as they continue. In closing, I'd like to say that in Elizabeth Schoenhell's article, More Than Just a Seat at the Table, she discusses how Austin, Texas participants engaged in youth and became part of the process to actively end homelessness. By integrating youth in the process regarding the services they need, programs are better aligned with the youth's needs and enhance the sustainability of youth and focus on products. They have better outcomes, mostly from actively participating. These agencies are in place and they are making a difference in these child's lives because they are listening to the youth. They provide clinics, they provide services, they provide shelters, they provide job training, and they are helping these youth transition to reduce the potential of homelessness. There's a plan in place for them. Ending our homelessness can be done if we work together and provide youth with the support they need. But we must ensure that the youth have access to resources that can respond to their needs. Whether it is necessary, access to stable housing, legal aid, help with family reunification, employment opportunities, and especially finding ways to keep them in school. For these youth and in child services, foster care and juvenile care service can prepare youth for successful outcomes. It is possible for programs to be put in place to support them with caring adults. But for any of these programs to succeed, we must be mindful to engage the youth in the planning. I thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you again.